Hello,
Hi, Mario.
Yaakov.
How are you?
How are you? Good,
Good.
thank God.
So where is everybody?
It's only 7:59.
Oh, you're right. Only, yeah, we got a whole minute here. What was I thinking?
Oh, now it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we still don't have anyone here. Guess everyone's
Well,
getting
we
ready.
have somebody.
Yes, we do. The others are getting ready for slichas, I guess.
Has it been hot in the valley?
Yeah, it's actually been quite hot. Supposed to be cool off tomorrow.
Yeah,
How's
yeah,
it there?
down to 85 or something like that.
Yeah, you're always cooler in the city. I mean,
Yeah,
except in
not a big deal, cooler.
yeah.
Yesterday, I sat in my car after the car was in the street for a few hours. It was 100 degrees inside the car.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hot.
yeah.
It's hot.
It's hot. It is hot for sure.
Hmm. I don't think we are starting volume 14 today.
No, I don't think we are either.
We still had a few.
I think he actually said that in his email. Was it in the? On 13, page 305. That's from your WhatsApp.
Yeah. Oh, is
Hi,
there any?
Mario.
There.
Hello?
Just us chickens today, I guess.
You have
Well,
some
no,
guys?
Bernie and
Ernie,
Saul are
yes.
here. We
Oh,
just
good.
came from the shul did like a kumsitz to teach all the nigunim because we have a new chazan. So Walter and Chaim Eisenberg are there. They're going to be joining later here.
Okay.
I think we're on 305, correct?
Yeah. Ernie,
Talked about pizza.
Ernie,
Yes, Mario.
Alisa got a new job.
Aliza, my Aliza?
Yeah. In Camp Moshava, she's director.
No, she's not the director.
Mazel tov.
No, Aliza.
Manager, whatever it says.
Where did you say, what is it? An
Ali-
announcement?
Ali-
came out?
She's not, Ernie. She just.
Moshava.
Well, she's like the fundraiser. Mario, she's like
I'll
the
tell you what it
fundraiser.
says. Welcome.
Susie, look, Mario's showing you
That's
something.
her.
Yeah?
Of course that's her. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
picture of her. And where did you get that from?
Where'd you see that?
I get emails from Moshava because my grandkids went there. So it says, welcome to Alisa Litwin, our new office and development manager.
Oh,
Oh, okay, you know
nice.
more than me.
Okay,
Okay.
very
Talk to her
nice.
every day, twice, 10 times a day. Thank you.
Send that to me, Mario, please.
Yeah, well,
So we're on 305. We discussed last week pizza. So pretty much remember we brought Rav Moshe that when you eat one slice, it's a snack. But if you eat two, it looks like a lot of poskim today hold that you should make a motzi. We said Rav Belsky, Rav Zalman Nechemia, Rav Hershel Schachter, Rav Willig, and Rav Ovadia Yosef as well, that if the dough is made with water, that you should make a motzi. Okay. The second identified category of this pasababi kisvin consists of foods made with dough containing flavoring and additives, fruit juice, eggs, sugar. As we saw in the previous year, Ashkenazim and Sephardim disagree on a number of details within this category. In addition, we discussed there some of the complexities involving sweet chal and mizonos rolls. However, regarding a number of foods, all opinions agree that they belong to this category and their bracha is mizonos. And some of these are mentioned by Rabbi Forst, who wrote the laws of brachos. So number one, cake. Any cake, muffin, or cupcake, which has, because of course they're made with flour. So what distinguishes that from bread? So it has the distinct taste of its flavorings and is thus unsuitable to be used in place of bread, as are most cakes, muffins, and cupcakes. And therefore it requires only mazonos. Certainly chocolate cake, coffee cake, honey cake belong to this category and require mazonos. Now, a croissant, which due to its flavorings or sweetness is unfit to be used in place of bread, likewise requires only mazonos. Soft pretzels made with apple juice require mazonos. Those made with water may require amotzi. Soft pretzels made with water are in truth subject to some debate. Although Rav Forst rules here to recite amotzi on them, he writes in a footnote 34 that perhaps any foods designed to be eaten as a snack should still require only mazonos, even if they do not directly fit in any of the categories of Pasuk Bava Kislev. This suggestion is posited by the Minchas Yitzchak and Stei Chemet, and mentioned by Rabbi Forst again in footnote 51. Rabbi Mordechai Willig also holds this way concerning soft pretzels, as we quoted above in the concluding section. Now, page 306, practical cases of dry, thin foods. The last of the three categories of pas haba b'kisnin, codified by the Shulchan Aruch, was biscuits, a somewhat ambiguous term, which would seem to include a variety of relatively dry, brittle, crunchy foods. In the previous year, we cited the Beis Yosef description of these foods, quote, it is a bread, whether flavored or unflavored, which is made as dry biscuits, ka'achin, and these are chewed both at parties and outside parties. People customarily eat small amounts of them, close quote. Etymologically, it would seem that the word ka'achin is related to our term cookie, but we may only guess what exactly this meant in Baghdad 1,000 years ago, when Rav Hai Gaon wrote about it, and in Tzfat 500 years ago, when Rav Karo wrote about it. Today, this word is sometimes used in modern Hebrew for pretzels, which certainly may be included in this halachic category. But we cannot assume that the original term was used with references to pretzels specifically. Back to the text. It is generally taken for granted that the designation pataba b'kisnin would therefore apply to crackers, cookies, pretzels, and other similar foods. And this is discussed by Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank in the Har Tzvi. Al dvar bakashato lahodienu pratim bedin hamitzuyos hamatzios haktanos. He calls it small matzahs hamiyutzarim b'mafiot that are made at bakeries. Im pturim in netilas yadayim v'erchas hamos. Do they need netilas yadayim? Verotz of
His honor, whatever that is.
no, verotz ktov kvod torato ladat b'chtei lashiv lasholem kedat malaso. Hinei b'shulchan aruch yesh gimel shitot b'din pasaba b'kis. He's going to review these three. V'yesh meforshim basra hushitas Rav Hai Gaon. Some say that the last one is the sheet of Rav Hai Gaon in a pasaba b'kisnin. The pasha is some ka'avim yeveshim, dry biscuits. Yeshlem din pasaba b'kisnin. Afalpi she'ein muruvem shum davar chutz mikevach umayim. They're made out of flour and water. Mikol makom mikevan she'em ne'afot la'ochlam shelo b'kviyut suda. A cracker is meant to eat as a snack. It's not meant to be eaten like with a sandwich or like to be kovea suda on it. Even though they might be called like a flat bread, they might have the status of bread because of flour and water, but really they get a birchas hamos. So similarly, he says, Im kain ani matzios ktanois, hem yichodim la'achilas aroi. Crackers are made for temporary eating. V'lo l'kviyas suda. If a person is going to sit and eat 20 crackers and that's going to be his meal, so he would make a motzi. That's basically what he's saying. They mix in sugar, shemen, ve'od. Ve'ofen shenikara tam b'achilata. You can taste the sweetness of it, or like graham. Think about graham crackers, right? So that has, you can taste the honey. So that's flour that's had honey put into it. That's what he's referring to, that you can taste the taste when you eat it. Remember, the Ramah says, we don't rely on taste. If the majority is not fruit juice and spices, you can't rely on that alone. But in our case of crackers, you have Rav Hai Gaon who's talking about flat breads. So, and now you have this thing of taste. You have two things to make it lenient, not to have to make a motzi. Ubesefer Chesed Lavram Asfardi, Yesh Arichut Varim. He goes at length. V'hu masik, the matzo shel Pesach, ikar afiyosem kedelik bo suda leim. We bake, because what he's trying to deal with the question, if crackers that are flour and water don't need hamotzi, how can we make hamotzi on matzah? It's also flour and water and baked like a cracker. However, he says when you bake matzahs, the intent of them is you're going to eat your Suda with it, like we do on Pesach. We eat our soup with it, we eat our meat with it, that's our soup, that's our bread for the Suda. V'lachein kol din pas lehem. Mashekin matzah saktan is these small crackers. Shetchilas af yasnu shelo l'shem kviya Suda. The intent of them is to eat as a snack. Yesh l'potrom metilas yadai. The Goen, the Hachidah, right? Rav David Azulai, B'sifro Machzik Bracha, Mefakbek wrote Lomer the Bechol HaMatzos, Aval Pi Deikar Af Yosan L'Shem Kvi Asuda, Mikol Mokom Asher Oichel Me'Makrei HaPesach Choizrim L'Din Pasal Ba B'Kisnin. The Chidah says that when you eat matzah after Pesach, you make a mazonos on it. In Cambridge, you don't do that. Mistaber Me'od Shem P'tur Metis Adam V'Echas HaMazon. We, of course, don't do that.
This thing on Pesach, you have to eat a certain shiur, which is a major piece
It's a
of
lot.
matzah. So that is kovei suda.
Absolutely. You kovea Suda without intent. Bernie is pointing out that because for chiyuv matzah, you have to eat a kazayas, at least, or maybe 2 kazesim. So you're eating the established amount that you need for these brachas anyways for kviyah Suda. In summary, Rav Frank rules that flatbread crackers should be viewed as parababikisnin and not as bread for 2 reasons. They have the form of the dry briskets referred to by Rav Haigon, which are not typically eaten as the basis of the meal. Rav Frank would presumably rule that one recites mazonos based upon the opinion of Rav Haigon alone, since each of the 3 categories of parababikisnin are generally accepted by the Achronim separately. You don't have to add, oh, it's a parababikisnin because it has all 3 of the characteristics. No, each one by itself is put into a category like that. Number 2, their doughs include significant quantities of flavoring. Rav Forst mentions a number of practical examples of this category of parababikisnin. Hard pretzels are made with flour and water only. However, since they're normally eaten merely as a snack, they require only mazonos. Biscuits and crackers, including thin wheat or rye crackers, right? You know, like what do you call those thin wheat? Well,
Yeah.
Saul says melbatos, but
That's
I'm talking about the wheat thins.
It's the same thing.
Although they're made with flour and water only, require mazonos. Breadsticks fit into this category since they too are hard, brittle, and are usually eaten only as a snack. Rav Forst notes later that although toast also contains a hard form, the bracha is still a motzi, because originally baked as bread, and only later toasted in an oven. Bread cannot be later transformed into parababikisnin through a process such as toasting. Rav Forst writes that the common custom regarding melba toast is also to recite hamotzi. On the other hand, Rav Bodner writes that one recites mazonos on melba toast. See footnote 19 there, where he reports that he placed melba toast in front of Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and Rav Shlomo Zalman ruled to recite mazonos on it, since it's nearly identical to the type of dry, brittle product referred to by Rav Haigon. Plus, he felt it would usually be eaten as a snack rather than as a meal. So you see, these are really controversial things. You'll bring it to one gadol, you bring another gadol, you get different things. Rav Badr writes that a toasted bagel or pita chips are subject to the bracha of mazonos, assuming that they are made specifically for this purpose. I guess bagel chips he's talking about, bagel chips,
Right.
not a toasted bagel. Right. The bracha of toasted bagel or pita chips is bar mazonos, provided that the bagel or pita was made specifically for the production of toasted chips. However, if a product is made from leftover bagels or pita bread chips, hamotzi and benching are required. Well, how are we supposed to know?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to know if you buy?
Well, the difference is whether you bought it in a market in a bag
Or
or
you
you
made it
buy, or you
yourself.
made
No,
stuff at home.
if you buy it in a market in a bag, are they made from old bagels or are they baked specifically for this? How are you supposed to know?
I'm sure they're made just.
No, they're made fresh. I doubt there's enough old bagels to supply all these companies.
The logic here is cited in the name of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and is similar to that mentioned by Rabbi Forst about concerning toast. He says it's maintained in the name of the OU that pita chips are usually first made to be bread, and the bracha is therefore on motzi. Matzah, which Rav Frank refers to in passing, presents another interesting application of this category. Matzah serves the role of bread on Pesach. Then it's no question it's brachas amotzi. But is this also true during the rest of the year? The Sefer Vizos HaBracha summarizes the accepted custom that Ashkenazim generally recite amotzi on matzah all year. Sephardim recite mezonos on matzah except for Pesach, when matzah takes the place of bread. Nonetheless, some poskim encourage Sephardim to eat matzah only within a meal of bread so as to avoid the issue. The matzos regilos, minag bnei Ashkenaz v'rach hamotzi, kiven shachos l'kviyas suda, v'lo rak derech haray. Matzahs are eaten as part of the meal. U'minag bnei Sfard l'v'rach ha'matzah b'shari mos hashana bori minim zodes. V'yesh lamo masha yispachu, they have someone to rely on. However, v'adif lo la'achlam avatoch suda k'tei shlo likanis l'safek. Again, they are advised to make hamotzi on bread and eat matzah if they want in the middle of that suda, and they don't have to worry about this suffix. Ukedin zeh kosav hayalkut Yosef Sham v'tzion kach kosav achidah b'machzik bracha. The chidah of Azulai said to do that. Shirei Shema mishtad limona misafek. Ve'Rav Mordechai Eliyahu horish she'ein tzarich lachmer b'zeh. He says you can eat mizonos without worrying about putting it in the meal. So, Mike, you bake bread, like Pat's makes bread pudding from old bread. You'd have to make a motzi on that. It's the same. It's no different than toast.
But it's sweet.
No, because they added that later. The bread. We're talking about bread pudding. Well, it started off as regular bread. It was baked as bread. Then they throw in sugar and all that stuff. But I would think that it would need a motzi. Most people eat bread pudding after, as a dessert. So you've already made a motzi. But if you were just going to eat bread pudding, I would think, based on what we've learned so far, it's not that the bread was baked with sugar. The bread was baked as regular bread. Same thing that if you take bread and you make toast out of it, even though it's hard and brittle, was baked as bread, you have to make a motzi on it.
I think we're talking about bagel chips and you're talking.
Well, that bagel chips is, yeah.
Those, if you're getting it commercially, it's made for that purpose. They're not collecting old bagels.
Okay. Saul says that the commercial companies that are making pita chips and bagel chips, they're not collecting old bagels from around the country. They're baking it specifically for the chips, for the snack.
Right.
So I say mazonos on that. I've never said a motzi on that.
But this is telling us it's a motzi.
No.
If it's made.
If it's made as of old bread, yes, you'd have to make a
Right,
motzi.
those are not.
Let's say you at home take bagels that you bought and they're old, and you make bagel chips out of it.
Yeah.
Then you make. That's what we're talking about, the bread pudding business. The same thing. The matzah bride. Matzah was baked as matzah. I don't care that you now mix it with eggs. You have to make a motzi on it.
Any other opinions?
Yaakov, do you agree with that? Yaakov agrees.
That's what he seems to say here. Yes. If it starts out that way, that's what you're stuck with, or that's what you should do.
Make a comment, just
Yes.
because in the footnote it talks about, the OU said that pizza chips, talks about pizza chips better than hamotzi. So just in today's email, one of the Israeli websites showed that Rav Menachem Genack from the OU poskin that artificial chicken made from vegetable, right, but grown from a seed from a chicken, that it is, first of all, it's kosher, right? And there was a question about that. But so there's a difference of opinion. He said, but definitely it is, you can only eat it with a fleshig meal. You cannot mix it with any dairy products.
Yeah, because it was made from a fetus. It was made from a
Yeah,
chick.
from the
It's
cells.
made from cells. Yeah.
But on the other hand, Rabbi Lau issued an opinion that was different. He said, yes, it's not, because it was never basar. It was just from the cells, and they were just denatured. Therefore, you're allowed to. There's a machlok.
Okay.
It was a machlok.
Okay. No, Bernie was quoting something he got in an email that, there's a new there's a meat coming out of Israel that's made out of cells. it wasn't a chicken that was shechted. It's just cells in utero. Like they use the fetuses, and then they grow large amounts of this meat. Apparently, the Israeli psak is that it's not fleishik. Rabbi, in the name of Rabbi Lau, I haven't seen it, but Rav Genak of the OU said it is fleishik. It's certainly kosher.
Yeah.
So there may be a machlokas between the poskim on that issue. Okay, we're on 309 Chaim, because Chaim is home. So the
Got it.
must have ended. Did the Kumsitz end?
Yeah, about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, very nice. So we didn't miss very much.
No,
Okay, so what we did, Chaim, is we talked about crackers, that why get some mazonos. And the interesting thing that we said was pita chips and bagel chips, that if it's commercially made, that they didn't take old bagels or old pitas, then you can make a mozonos on it. But if it's made out of old bagels or old pitas, which were originally made as bread, then you make a
You
motzi.
gotta change that.
I think
Look at the footnote. It doesn't say, something
No,
different.
the OU says pita chips, you should make a motzi on. Because they claim that those pitas were usually made to make bread, that
But some
they
says
take
that
old
look-
pitas.
but some
They don't
says-
just bake pita chips and in
No,
small little
they-
chips. They bake pizzas and they cut them up or something and make them into
It
chips.
all says the same thing about bagels too.
They make bagels first, then they slice them up. So they're made with bagels. It's a process. So.
Yeah, but he doesn't, but the OU didn't say anything about bagel chips. It said about,
You can't have Oreos after a flakes meal too.
no, you can't have it with the fleshik meal because it's dairy equipment. But afterwards, something was made with dairy equipment, it's not milk.
Oh,
There's
I
a,
know
there's
that,
a
and I know that.
chumrah that you're not supposed to eat it with directly with meat.
No, I know
But
that.
you don't have to wait 6 hours
That
before
came
you
out
eat
from
it.
Star Cake
What do?
originally, with the Oreos. But, you didn't go along with it in the beginning.
Okay. So now we're on 309. Foods made from liquid batter or light dough. So the Shulchan Aruch discussed 3 types of pasa babikistan. They all differ from conventional bread in some way. They share the following essential characteristics, as they are made by baking dough kneaded from flour and water. What is the status of foods made by slightly different methods? What if they are made in some way which is not conventional baking, or from doughs which are not solid enough to be kneaded? Of course, we're going to be talking about pancakes and waffles and things like that. The poskim discuss these questions in light of the following Gemara Masechta Brachos that addresses which doughs are subject to the mitzvah of separating challah, which is an indicator of what might be deemed pas, bread. So they say truknin chayovin bechallah. V'chiyasa Rav Rav Yochanan truknin p'tur min hachallah. Now, my truknin, Amrabaya kuva da'ara. What is truknin? A watery mixture of flour and water, which they roast in a cavity in a stove in the ground, and is not actually bread. Okay, we can figure out what that is in a minute. Amrabaya, trita, another thing, p'tur min hachallah. It's not bread. My trita, Igdei Amri, Gvil Martach, flour and water kneaded, that is poured onto a boiling hot stove. Sounds like a griddle, correct? Sounds like you're making a pancake.
Mhm.
Igdei Amri Nama Dahandaka, bread from India. What is that called? There's a name for that. AAN, something, man? No,
Han.
no, pan is a French word, but in India, okay, some kind of Indian bread made from dough wrapped around a skewer, covered with oil or eggs before baking. Okay? Vikidami lechem asui lekutach, bread made for kutach, bread baked in an unusual manner so that it would become extremely leavened, could be used as an ingredient in the Babylonian spice kutach. Kutach is like a mayonnaise, and they wanted like almost like a sourdough. The Rosh concludes that truknin are
It's
subject.
none.
Huh?
None, none.
Yeah, non,
It's none.
non, N-A-A-N. Rashi,
Here.
the Rosh concludes that truknin are subject to challah, trita is not. In the Rosh's discussion, he also provides a more detailed description of what exactly these foods are. Afa gav de blilaso raka, the guv ba'almahavi, it's liquid batter in a massive dough. It starts like as a sponge cake. The sofo isa shechai b'challah, but at the end it was a dough, which is subject to challah. Aval davar shetchilaso sufganim. The sofo, if it's all a donut or a sponge cake, kigon shablilaso raka, liquid batter, vinisagin b'shemen, or fried in oil, potter b'nachallah. The aim of Varchan alav hamotzi. Again, this is the Rosh. You're talking about 1200, 1300. My truknin, Amrabaya kuba da'ara. Amrabaya trita p'tur b'nachallah. The lo dami l'truknin. This is not like truknin. Dafal pisha b'lilas raka, even though it's a liquid batter. Oifen oiso beguma. They bake them in a cavity in the stove. K'mosh pirish Rashi nasa lechem, and they become a bread. Aval mirtach, boiling batter that's posed onto the stove. It spreads. It's like a pancake. It's like what do they serve at farmers market? What do they call those things? Those flat things that people buy. Crepes, pancake, crepe, that kind of thing where the liquid spreads. This discussion is, yes? This discussion has implications for the halachos of brachos. If something is subject to the mitzvah of challah, it has the status of pas, and the person would recite the brachos of bread if it's eaten as a fixed meal. If something is exempt from challah, even if it becomes the basis for a fixed meal, its bracha remains bezonos. Truknin, da'ainu she'osin guma b'kira. They make a hole in a stove. Nosin b'kemach u'mayim. They put flour and water. Murayim of an and it's baked there. That almost sounds like a waffle. Even if you made your meal on it. No, it says the truknin, which is you pour it into a cavity and then it's baked there. If you're not kovei suda, it's bormin zonos. And kovei suda, some of our chamotzi. Trita. You mix flour and water. You pour it on the stove. It spreads v'nefet. Ein alav toras lechem klal. And even if you're kovei suda on it, right? Now, the Mishnah Berurah notes that there's a more stringent view, according to which even terita should be treated like bread if one fixes a meal upon it. That means even this pancake or crepe, the Mishnah Berurah brought a shita that if you were kovei suda, you do have to make a motzei. Nonetheless, the Mishnah Berurah cites an opinion that reconfirms the ruling of Shulchan Aruch, and this is the predominant practice even among Ashkenazi. So if we assume that terita is pancakes, so even if your main meal is going to be the pancakes, it stays with the mazonos. By the way, pancakes have sugar in it and eggs and oil, and it isn't just flour and water. It tastes like a cake. The name of it, pancake, is well. There's a lot of things in halacha like that you follow the name. If the name says cake, cupcake, right? Then it has that status. In any case, according to Shulchan Aruch, grain flour-based foods made from a liquid batter are not pasa babikistin and are never treated as a halachic bread. Thus, even if a person eats a large amount of these, of blintzes, crepes, crackers, wafers, the first bracha will always be mizonos. And no, I don't care how much of that you eat.
Should the knot be out there?
The what?
Or treated? The knot is, it says, in any case, grain flour-based foods made from liquid water are not Pot Kisnin and never
are
treated.
never treated as halachic bread.
They are pot Kisnin.
No, they're not a pasa. That means they don't even rise to the level of pasa babi kisnin.
I see.
It means even to be pasa babi kisnin requires certain requirements. It's got to be flour and water. Now, if it's cracker, yes, it's pasa babi kisnin. It's not real bread. This doesn't even rise to the level of pasa babi kisnin, is what he's saying. Remember, because Yaakov, pasa babi kisnin, everyone, if you're kover suda on it, you make a motzi.
Right.
Here, they want to say that on blintzes or crepes or something like this, that because it spreads and it's never baked in the way that pas is, because the Gemara said turita is always putter from challah, so it never gets the bracha of amotzi. It's not in the category of pas, and therefore, even if you're kaver suda on it, you don't make amotzi.
All right, got it.
It's a tricky sugya. It really is. That's even if a person eats a large amount of thin, right, will always be mizonos. Let's see the Piskei Teshuvos. Kol suge havaflim, right, a waffle. He called it wafers, but it's really a waffle. Karkarim dakikim mo'od, very thin crackers. Blintzim, lisugeyan, means different kinds of blintzes. Ubirchasan mizonos, afilu kavim sudalem. You make a mizonos even if you're kaver suda. According to Piskei Teshuva, elsewhere in the source quoted here, pancakes and waffles differ from the groups of food mentioned here due to their thicker nature, and they would be classified as pasa babi kisnin. Okay? So, if you're kaver suda on your pancakes and waffles, you'd have to make a motzi.
But he says "B'chasa mezanos afilu kovim suda aleim."
No, but now they're saying that's what he didn't include pancakes and waffles in this blintz thing. He says pancakes and waffles differ due to their thicker nature, and they would be classified as pasa babi kisnin. They're not pas, so if you're just going to eat it as a snack, you'd make them mazonos. But if you're
even if you're kover suda.
No, the wafers, crackers, and blintzes is always mizonos, even if you're a kover suda on them.
But he says
Period.
havaflim. If it's waffles.
But you see, look how they translated it. They said wafers. You know, remember the wafers that we used to eat? They were pink on the inside.
Right.
Huh?
Like elite wafers.
Like elite wafers, you know, wafers.
Yeah, but but look at number 10. He says, according to Piskei Teshuva, pancakes and waffles differ, and they would be classified as part.
Exactly. That's why I just said that, because pancakes and waffles, they're not very thin, they're thicker. So he feels they would be pasa babi kisnin, and therefore, if you were kover suda on it, it would need a motzi.
So okay, so wafflim doesn't mean waffles; it means wafers.
Yes.
And he says wafflim. Okay.
Correct. However, even in the case of a runny batter, some have found a possible exceptional case. Rav Yitzchak Ratzabi, a contemporary Israeli posek from the Yemenite community, has argued that a person must sometimes recite a motzi berachas mazon over lachuch, a sponge-like food which loosely resembles lafa, a large flatbread much like pita. The halachuch shunefe b'machvat, baked in a pan, domet le truknin, which is blila raka, this sort of liquid batter that's baked in a pan. Shiny teresa. It's different from teresa shehi dakam and adar. It's very thin because it spreads. That's like a crepe. Kumosha kvar arachnu bezeh beberes yitzchak hilchos brachas hamotzi shem kava sudas alem avarach hamotzi brachas hamotzi. On this thing, this lachuk, you have to make a motzi. But imein kover suda bar mizonos. So pancakes and waffles, if you're going to eat your meal, would need a motzi based on this. Okay, page 312. We are going to finish, I believe, today.
No,
Huh?
You still have like 10 pages,
No, I think we'll finish today. Fried doughs.
right?
Okay, but if not, we will certainly start volume 14 next week. So I've already given, Yaakov, you have your volume 14, right? Yeah,
No.
Jack, I gave Jake Litwin your copy.
All right, so I need to contact him then.
Yeah, I gave him 3 for the Valley.
Okay, thank you.
Mario, you have yours.
Yes.
Chaim, did you come and pick yours up? I forgot.
No, I did not yet.
Okay, well, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay. As indicated above, it's a foregone halachic presumption that the designation of a bread is applied to a kneaded dough, which is baked inside an oven. However, as we have already seen, the halacha also discusses dough prepared for eating by alternative methods. What is the status of dough that is fried, as opposed to baked? Donuts, sufganiyot, are they pasabal b'kisnin, which would warrant hamotzi when eaten in large quantities? So let's look at the following debate among the Abayram and the Gemara Masechta Psachim concerning whether the mitzvah of separating challah applies to dough prepared over the fire in an ilfas, a skillet-like utensil. Ton Rabbanan, hasuf ganim, v'haduf shanim, sponge cake, honey cake, v'iskritin, spiced cakes, v'chalas amaseres, pan-fried bread, v'hameduma. Meduma was a mixture of truma, because we can't eat truma, and regular chulin. All of these are p'tur min hachala. The Gemara asks, "My chala hamaseres." Arish ben Levi zechalut shel balebatim. Boiled bread baked by homeowners in a deep frying pan. Arish Lakish halalu masa ilfas hein. No, these are put in an ilfas, and this is like a stew, not a bread. And food prepared in a pot, not in an oven, and boiled, you'd be exempt from challah, says Rish Lakish. Rav Yechon Ramaisa ilfis chayovin, but if you make bread like a stew, it's obligated in challah. Valolo shason b'chama. The other ones were baked in the sun. Since they were not baked by a fire, they're not chayiv in challah. The Rishonim write that halacha accords with the position of Rabbi Yochanan, and the pot prepared bread is subject to challah. But the Rishonim disagree regarding the particulars of this dispute. According to Rabbeinu Tam, the Amoraim argue only about liquid batter, but they all agree that a thick dough is subject to the obligation of challah, even if it's fried. Oimer Rabbeinu Tam, the dafka will also raka. It's only if the batter is very thin, where there's pligid Rav Yochanan, that there's a machlokes. The Rav Yochanan saw Rav Yosef lecha, that baking it in this special kind of deep pot, it would be bread and chayiv b'challah. And Rish Lakish sover eno ser lecha, doesn't give it a name of bread. Ava bliloso ava, but if the dough is thick, kula almin more chayiv b'challah. Everyone says it's chayiv and challah. Afilu al yedei mashke, even if it's cooked fried like with oil. The chayiv challah v'maisa gilgul. Challah starts only from when you start kneading it, not when you bake it. The Beis Yosef cites Rav Shimshon, who writes that challah applies only to dough which is earmarked for dry baking, like in an oven. If you intend to fry or cook the dough, it's exempt from challah. Now, even bagels, they boil it for like 20 seconds, but then it's put in the oven and baked. So it's baked. It's baked. There is the more dry baking goes on than the boiling. Whether we make hamotzi is whether it has the status of challah. If it's hard to knead, afilu bishlu b'mashkin, and even if it was fried in liquid, so as long as it starts as a dough and ends as a donut or a sponge cake, and if the liquid batter, the sofa yedei or, but you're going to fire it below mashke, dry, Ashte belosa raka v'sofa bo'oli mashke. El shachar kach kosrim perket mevorchim gabi lechem asui lekutach. Bread made for this mayonnaise. Mashma ralosh isha gemura. If you make a real dough, the title of bishul b'mayim, you want to boil it. Thus, as the Beis Yosef argues, Rabbeinu Shimshon ultimately concludes that the intent to finish a solid dough via heating with liquid, whether you cook it or fry it, is sufficient to make it potter from challah. Opposite this view, Rabbeinu Tam holds that only a liquid batter can be exempt from challah. In the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Kar rules in accordance with the opinion of Rabbeinu Shimshon, but he presents the position of Rabbeinu Tam as a yesh omer. The Ramah writes that the custom is to be lenient in accordance with the first opinion, but the Shulchan Aruch concludes, and the Ramah agrees, that it is proper to eat fried dough only in the course of a bread-based meal, so to conform to both positions. So, says the Shulchan Aruch, afilu davar shebli loso, ava, even though it's a thick dough, in bishla, if you cooked it, or tigna, or fried it, ein mevarach ala moitzi, afilu sheish la teresa denama, even if it looks like bread, afilu ischayva b'chala, the birchas hamotzi ein oilech el achar shasafia. It's what it looks like when you baked it. However, yesh cholkin, the oimrim, the chol shetchilaso yisa'ava, if the dough starts thick, afilu rikcha, even if it was softened with water, vasal sufganim, and you made it into sponge cakes. However, no gulahakel. And eat it in a meal. Ostensibly, then, this ruling of the Shulchan Aruch would seem to determine halacha for fried dough, including some kind of donuts. This is confirmed by Rabbi Forst, though he adds that if the donuts have a strong taste due to the oil in which they are cooked, which may be the case for many donuts, and the mazonos is recited according to all opinions. Donuts are made of solid dough, cooked in water or oil, and subject to the same question of whether to recite amotzi or mazonos. Rav Forst assumes here, based upon the Mishnah Berurah, that the second opinion in the Shulchan Aruch and the recommendations to eat such foods within a bread meal applies if one eats less than the amount of kriyas suda. However, Rav Pinchas Bodner writes that the second opinion, the recommendation to be stringent, applies only if one eats the amount of the kriyas suda. This would appear to be based upon the opinion of the Taz over there. Back to the text. If the donuts are cooked in oil and absorb a strong taste of the oil, they have the status of any flavored dough and required only mazonos. That's our donuts. They're sweet, they're cinnamon, they don't taste like bread. As noted by Rav Moshe Levi, sufganiyot, fried filled donuts that are filled with jelly or cream would be considered pasah b'avikisan, even according to Rabbeinu Tam. Thus, unless one eats enough of them to constitute a meal, their bracha remains mazonos according to all opinions. Hinei sufganiyat birchata b'reim mazonos. Mishnei Tam. Tam echad neishu mitugenet. It's being fried. Ve'ein nechsheves lechem l'das Rabbeinu Shimshon. What we just learned. So it's not considered bread because it was fried. Tam beis. Mamalim also beriva. They put caramel in it. Metukal mefazrim alei sukkar. They scatter sugar on it. Very pasav abikisna. That's harbe rishonim. Shemafarshim shepasav abikisna. He pashem ulas b'minei metika. We said one of the opinions of pasav abikisna is when you a filled donut. So therefore, Gam Rabbeinu Tam shesover shebatzek mitugan shav lechem. Even we quoted the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam now, that fried dough would be bread, but he would agree here. The question surrounding fried dough is relevant for malawach, a flaky Yemenite flatbread made from puffed pastry that is quite popular in Israel. Many poskim write that although its dough is bread-like, its considerable margarine content renders it pasah b'abikisna. Thus, a person eating it in passing would recite mazonos, but when eaten as a meal, should recite amotzi. Rav Melamed, the Pnei Halacha, Malawach hu kimin botzek alim, It's made shosimo so shechavot. It's made in layers. Uvein shechva l'shechva murchim margarina. Between each layers, they put a lot of margarine. Lachar became mutuganim, and then they fry it as some aloach or ofimos, or they bake it. Given sheyesh barbe margarina, ashuk tzatom el pita. Even though it's like pita, dino kepasa babikisne. It's not bread. Shem koyim lav suda mevach motzi. Machol tokidei charoy. You say mizonos. Other achronim are more hesitant to say definitely that malach is distinct from bread. That's according to Zosa Bracha. A person is discouraged from eating a small amount of malach outside the context of a bread-based meal. Hinei lefia horasa mechaber shemavarch mazonos afal miut metikot dinol varch mazonos v'cheinogu b'nei sfer varch mazonos imol kava. If bread has some sweetness, you say mazonos. Ach, nashitas haramo yesh b'zer shaila ki kafish be rarnu legabi amaychol hakar malavach b'harbe mekomot ein lashon sa'isa b'rova. They don't need the dough with margarine. Father Rabbi b'harbe what amayim hu arov. In most places, it's flour and water, and that's the majority. Or maybe shavel kamosa margarina, or equal to the margarine. And then jachnun, yesh b'zeh rov shuman l'matamayim. There's more oil than water. So everybody therefore holds that's mezonos. Amnam mitzad sheni, tam Hashem and nikir ma'od b'isa. You can taste the oil in the malawach. V'hoirili echad migdolei ador shedina kesofek. Sheladas ha'omer should dorish rov mamish b'varch lav ha'moitzi. L'das sh'achim achrei ikar atam v'varch ha'mamzoinot. So it's a sofek. So in each case of sofek, you should eat it within the Suda. One final application of this category relates to wraps or tortilla. The dough used for wraps is usually a thick dough similar to bread that is cut thinly, and the wraps are usually baked on a pan with little oil. The Ramah writes that when thick dough is baked in a pan without oil, you recite Amotzi. You just put a little pan, right? Little, very small amount of oil so it won't burn. That's not enough to be considered a liquid. So there's a good reason to maintain that one should recite Amotzi when eating a wrap that is made of wheat. The one made of corn would be shahakol. And that's the conclusion of Rav Belsky. Rav Belsky ruled that the proper bracha for a wheat wrap is Amotzi. Wheat wraps are made from bread-type dough that is flat and very thin, baked in a pan without oil. It's essentially a soft matzah. A bread dough retains the status of Amotzi even when baked thin. Some have argued that a wrap should not be Amotzi because it does not resemble bread. Rav Belsky maintained that since wraps are used for Kviyas Suda, a staple, much in the same way that one uses bread, the bracha is Amotzi. There's one type of wrap that's an exception. This is a wrap that is very doughy and not tasty when eaten by itself. It is only intended to be eaten as part of a sandwich. For this type of wrap, Rav Belsky ruled that when eaten alone in the bracha is mezonos, since it lacks the appearance and functionality of bread. But when eaten as a sandwich, the bracha is Amotzi. What about repurposed bread? We learned at the end of the previous year that bread that is already baked, but reconstituted by cutting into small pieces and then frying. How about bread stuffing, right? Sometimes retains the bracha of Amotzi, but sometimes warrants the bracha of mezonos. Let's see the criteria. Pieces of bread cooked together using liquid. If it's larger than a kazayas, Hamotzi. Smaller than a kazayas, mezonos. So if you made your bread stuffing, but it was small, less than a kazayas, and you mixed it with eggs and liquid, it loses its status of bread.
This is the same as bread pudding, your question of bread pudding.
Yeah, but the bread there, you got very large pieces, and they're large pieces.
Well, it would depend how you make it. If it's with large pieces, yes, and if it's smaller pieces, no.
And a chanami. Pieces of bread joined together using liquid, but without being cooked. What's an example of that? When would you put bread together and put it with a liquid, and not cook it? Pieces larger than a kazayas hamotzi, Pieces smaller than a kazayas, if they have the appearance of bread, amotzi. If they do not have the appearance of bread, mizonos. Pieces of bread are joined together without liquid or cooking, hamotzi. We also saw that the Mishnah Berurah questions whether frying has the status of baking or cooking, although deep frying is certainly classified as cooking. Let us now apply these criteria to practical cases. Rav Bodner writes that one recites hamotzi on French toast, since the slices of bread are used larger than kazayas. If the pieces are smaller than that, the bracha are mizonos if they are deep fried. Bread pieces which are larger than kazayas are considered to be bread, regardless of whether they were boiled, cooked, or fried. Therefore, by the bracha for any product containing pieces of bread which are larger than kazayas, hamotzi. For example, French toast, made from a whole slice of bread, requires hamotzi. It's larger than a slice of a kazayas. It retains its bread status regardless of how it is fried. French toast made with pieces smaller than kazayas, but fried without oil, or with just enough oil to prevent scorching, still requires hamotzi. Frying without oil is likened to baking. Therefore, the bread retains its bread status, even though it's smaller than kazayas. French toast made with pieces smaller than kazayas, but deep fried with oil, meaning the bread is entirely covered by the oil, requires mezonos. Deep frying is halachically like boiling. Since the bread is smaller than kazayas was cooked, it's no longer considered bread. What about bread placed in a soup and matzah bride? We've had Sai asked about, Sai is not here this week, but he asked about all of this. Bread crusts boiled in soup require only mizonos if they are smaller than kazayas. Matzah bride is made from small pieces of matzah soaked in egg and fried in oil. This creates a questionable situation. Although the pieces of matzah are smaller than kazayas, since they are fried and not boiled, one cannot recite a mizonos with certainty. Why not? It's deep fried. We said it's like cooking. Well, I don't understand their analysis. We said if it's deep fried, we just said that. Deep fried is halach like boiling. Therefore, one who eats matzah bride must recite a motzi on a piece of bread beforehand. If, however, the matzahs are soaked in water or oil and are no longer recognizable as matzahs, their bracha is mizonos. If the matzah bride is deep fried, then the bracha would be mizonos. In addition, Rav Bodner offers a suggestion from Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that, in his opinion, can render the bracha of matzah bride to be mizonos. First, one cuts the matzah into pieces smaller than kazayas, then boils them in water for about a minute. After this, may one continue with the remainder of the preparation normally. This is effective because once the pieces are smaller than kazayas, have also been cooked, in his opinion, according to which boiling them even for a short time classify them as cooked. Our last halacha, pasta, noodles, and kugel. We saw the debate surrounding dough prepared by boiling, or frying, instead of dry baking. The Ramah adds that this debate applies only when the dough is prepared in the form of bread. It has tzura sapas, but where there is no form of bread, the bracha is mizonos. It's got to look like bread. Avali les beitor lechem kagon lokshin shekorin varmaizalach. And based on this Ramah, we may categorically exclude all types of noodles, pasta, and the like from pasta babikistan, since they are usually cooked and do not have the appearance of bread. Accordingly, even in large quantities, all would agree that the bracha for these foods would always be born in mizonos. This sweeping ruling applies to doughs which are prepared for consumption solely by a process involving liquid, such as cooking in water or frying. Some dough-based foods, such as the primary components of noodle kugels and lasagna, undergo cooking only to be baked thereafter. Does the baking that culminates the preparation change these dishes to pasta babikistan, such as a person would be required to recite hamotzi in berachas hamazon? So b'inyan kugel, nechleku b'zeh migdolei dorenu. Das echad migdolei ador Rav Yoshiv, shemachal kashir kaviyas b'varach hamotzi. He says if you ate enough of kugel for kaviyas sori, you have to make hamotzi. Mikivan shenefal achar she's bashal, because it's baked after it's boiled. Vafia nesan lo din mafeh. becomes like a baked good. Umafkia mimenu din tafshil. Acharbe poskim chol kolo. Alohema going Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Rav Pinchas Scheinberg, and Rav Binyamin Yoshua Zilber. Od yesh layin bidin ha'itrios harchavos hamyuchados l'tavshil hakori lasagna. Shagam oto tavshil asuim matariot. It's made from noodles. First you cook the noodles, then you bake it. Hayim dinam kekugel. Is there din like kugel? Sheyesh lem din tavshil mezonos. U'shema yedinim shona kiven shein asil chadchila tzor chafia. They're made originally with the intent to bake them. Shomati b'shem moira harosh shein lehem din tor lechem. They don't look like bread. V'chein orali Rav Scheinberg. V'hoisif av sheinim avushal klal. If they're not cooked at all, yeshavar chalav borim and zonas. Kiven shein lo din lechem klal. V'chein orali echam idol yador shaf shenefe. Even though it's baked later on. Kiven shatriot merkatkot maluchot shebegvina. They're softened from the cheese and the sauce. Dino ketavshil doesn't look like bread. Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul writes likewise that one always recites borim and mezonos bankugla and noodles, which are baked after they are cooked. They're baked after they're cooked. B'shir kviya suda mevarch alem amotzi. No, you make mevarch aborim minei mezonos. Yeshar koach, everybody. We finished volume 13.
Pasta's not baked.
No. It says lasagna.
You make like a penne and
Or
then you bake it.
kugel, you cook it, then you bake it.
But also sometimes we put a penne in the.
Lasagna is the same thing.
No, like you-
Okay, everybody. K'tiva v'chatima tova.